this piece is called Party of Two, and it represents the sort of idea that we are really confined by having only two political parties, two major political parties in this country. And it's sort of a middle ground view, I guess I would call it, in terms of it's defending neither side. It's more of a complaint that there is two sides, and that there aren't more sides, and so it's addressing the corruption that's in both sides and the problems that are happening in both sides. And so it's not necessarily, focusing on one being better or worse or anything like that. It's more addressing the problems in America and in our culture that have been going on for decades and decades, and either been not addressed or even made worse. And especially by having these sort of two rigid parties. And that's what we have, the elephant and the donkey representing those two major parties. The bird in the cage is a green finch, and I'm not sure if people remember, but back during Bernie Sanders' campaign, there was a green finch that had landed. And so that's why I chose to actually represent his attempt at his campaign with this bird, and it's caged because of the two parties having really controlled everything. And as we all know, the Democratic Party was not great to Bernie Sanders, and the message isn't necessarily that he was a candidate that they should have chosen, but more of that the Democratic Party controlled that choice. It wasn't necessarily the people's choice, which is problematic. And so that's why the bird is caged. The donkey is holding the key of the cage for that reason. He's holding up the We the People, a little document rolled up in his feet. And it's the idea that the Constitution kind of really being manipulated and not adhered to, or really crossing a lot of boundaries and justifying it with all kinds of reasons. And there's a little sort of dollar bill sign on this gold cage, this gold bird cage, and it's representing capitalism, the idea that we're really manipulated and controlled by money. We're really confined by money as a people, as a culture. So that's why you got the dollar sign. It does have a little Donald Trump hairdo guy in the dollar sign. For so many reasons, he represents that capitalist culture. And never mind the last 4 years, all the chaos that has gone on, the upheaval, the disappointments, the sort of problems that really both sides, I'm not going to blame it all on one side, and really both sides have added to all of this, but because he was the president at this time, he's sort of the one leading the charge in terms of disruptive policies and ignoring policies, or making them worse, or removing the beneficial policies as well. But you have the DAPL pipeline going on. That's what this is, oil flowing out. You have cities burning in the background, which seems to be, in the news of the last decade. It's like there's cities are having all these problems, these sort of cultural and financial and resource problems. But this one in particular represented the era when it's not even an era because it's still going on, but when we had water shortages, there was no clean water being offered to the citizens, and it felt like the government was really unresponsible, not acting responsible. It was always somebody else's problem. They're blaming somebody else at all times for getting drinking water to its population, which is, the most basic necessity that anyone needs. And in a country like the United States, which we have so much pride in being this powerful nation, and yet we have, an entire city without clean drinking water. And even when this knowledge came about, it still wasn't addressed. It's kind of crazy that can go on in this era. But that's what that is acknowledging right there. And this is Justice, and she's blindfolded. And it's a sort of ancient symbol for justice. She's holding the scales, but she's got a flag wrapped around her sword that's on the Capitol building there, but it's got the colors of the American flag, but it is actually the Bank of America symbol on the flag. This is shortly after the era where Bank of America had really stumbled, to put it lightly, in terms of messing up people's mortgages and things like that. And I actually was involved in that firsthand myself. So we were one of the people who sued Bank of America in that very large lawsuit and won. But there was so many people suing that although we won, which is a nice pat on the back, sure, like great, we were right. But it didn't do anything for saving our house or for refunding all the money that we lost because they had actually illegally foreclosed on people's houses left and right during that year. And once it happened, it was too late. Yes, they were wrong, and yes, they got proven to be wrong, but it didn't do any good. It was too late. So that's just one company representing, the sort of attack that's been going on sort of the American middle class in terms of there's this sort of wealthy elite that gets away with a lot. And, they survive just fine. And then you've got, your average tax-paying citizen who, we have no power when it comes down to the policies and laws and protecting banking, protecting big business, protecting those groups who kind of do what they want. And when they finally get caught, there's a long line of bodies left behind them already, So the sort of cost of living in America, the idea that you can just work your way to a good life is really not happening anymore. And so that's what this is representing. We've got a pill bottle up here, a medication bottle, which not only addresses addiction, it's about addiction, but the opiate crisis that have been going on that I'm pretty convinced that big pharmacy is, not innocent of. And it also represents, though, the lack of health insurance coverage that people in this country has, or the fact that people are paying so much for health insurance and still not getting the coverage that they need, still not getting the medical care that they need. I have a close friend who passed of cancer, and after paying for health insurance her whole life, working her whole life to build this simple, nice little life, way before her time got cancer, and was shocked to find out that her insurance didn't cover cancer treatments. And they wanted $10,000 a month for co-payments. It's just not right. It's just not okay that your average family in America would have to come up with $10,000 a month to survive, literally to live. And so that's, like I said, addressing both issues. We have such a problem with addiction in our whole country. There's nowhere in America that's not literally battling addiction. And there's just not enough. We don't have enough treatment. We don't have enough funding. We don't have enough personnel, like hands on deck to actually fight what's going on. And I mean, you could look at the why of that for days and days, because when you're looking at the struggle that's going on just in daily life, it's no wonder that so many people, for so many reasons, are fighting addiction. And I used to work in addiction treatment in the past myself, so that's why it's sort of a first-hand view that I've had in terms of not having enough resources. We just don't have enough. And it's this guy, little guy on the medicine bottle. He's got no clothes left because he's literally spent, he's holding up his last dollar. He spent everything he had, to buy medical treatment, or, also addiction will do that too. You lose everything. And if you survive, then you do hit rock bottom, is the term that everybody uses. But we've got the media here, which, as I think everybody's sort of in agreement on, that the media has really become this bought and owned sort of entity now. Nobody knows who to trust in the media. Nobody knows who to listen to. Stories are skewed. Back when I was a kid, you turned on the news, they told you the facts, you were good to go, you knew where you stand. Now. It's, again, money. There's too much money involved in what we're hearing. Who is it that wants this message heard? So I think the media has become untrustworthy, and that's been a source for how we know what's going on. So it's scary times for that. We've got this little reference to religion. As I talked about at an earlier piece, that religion has played a role in sometimes oppressing people rather than helping people. And so you have this little character in their lab coat sort of trying to talk to this person who's waving around the Bible, and the person wants nothing to do with science. I think we've seen that, unfortunately, in our government for too many years now, where we're allowing religion to creep in. We're no longer having that separation of church and state in too many instances in terms of our lawmaking, and in terms of decisions around science too. And she's escaping on the Eagle. She just kind of got out because, this has been going on, for so long. It becomes overwhelming. It becomes like, how do you answer that? And so she's riding this eagle, this symbol of America, and escaping. And I think it's not necessarily just a depressing message. It's also a message of hope that we can leave this behind, that we can move on and move forward and learn, from our past. And speaking of the past, I have a Vietnam veteran. He's got this little Vietnam flag tattoo, veteran flag tattoo on his shoulder, and he's holding a cross. He's sort of fallen. He's exhausted, and the cross is sort of bearing him down. There's oil pouring out of the cross, and flooding behind him there's the Native Americans with the Cherokee symbol, and they're pointing at the pipeline, and their water is being contaminated, their land, their home. So this is representing how the government has passed policies that have really injured the people rather than helped them. And my dad was a Vietnam vet, so that's why I'm sort of aware of the treatment of the Vietnam era veterans. And he spent a lot of time at the VA hospital. My grandfather spent the rest of his life at the VA hospital after World War II. Veterans kind of were a forgotten group or mistreated group for quite a while. It's gotten better, but I think there's a lot of talk and not a lot of action going on in terms of supporting veterans. We still have so many homeless veterans. We have so many people struggling with PTSD that we really haven't come up with a way to address that. And we have there's just so many issues around the policies that the governments are making. You can't necessarily believe when they say they're helping a group of people. It often there's sort of another sort of shadowy effect going on in the background, people being harmed, and it's not, nobody necessarily is trying to stop that. That's why the Statue of Liberty is standing here. She is looking up at the eagle and the escaping woman, and raising her fist sort of in solidarity and saying, like, yeah, let's get out of here. Like, this is not freedom. This is not the people. This is not the land for the people. This is just chaos. And so these two are sort of in an energy connection. And she's the torch is gone. Normally she'd be raising her hand with the torch. The torch is gone, and she's now, raising her hand in acknowledgement to the eagle, the escaping woman here. But she was standing behind this tree with the little axe in it because there was so many budget cuts. The national parks took a big hit. I feel like there's such important resources in this country, and especially over the last 4 years, they were not only not protected more, but they were actually put more at risk. We started drilling in areas that were, protected before. National parks, I mean, that's one of the reasons we saw the fires in California were so much harder to address, because the funding wasn't there anymore. And so doing things, that seem, you might not think the national parks are that important, but it affects everything. I mean, it's all connected. And I think that's, a theme you find in most of my paintings is it's all connected. And, so if you are causing harm, in one section of your life or of the country or of the world, it's, reverberates to everything else. You're not living in a bubble. Everybody is connected. Everybody affects everybody. And so you kind of can't, like I said, it's not necessarily blame on any one group or person. It's sort of this overall giant community. The painting we talked about before was a more local community. This is, a much larger community with the same aspects going on.